Have you ever learned a new song only to realize that you've already forgotten the last one you learned? It can be so frustrating. I was playing cocktail hour at a wedding reception one time when this lady came up and dropped a tip in the jar. She asked me if I could play the tune Secret Love. I kind of ran through it in my head a little bit, but honestly I didn't feel confident enough to just jump in and do it. I had to pull open the chart to get through it. And I remember being so frustrated in that moment because I had spent so much time learning this tune, and for what? I had nothing to show for it. About a year ago, I saw my friend Jeremy Siskind in concert, and at the end of his shows, he takes a ballad request from the audience. Somebody called out the tune Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, a tune that I don't hardly know at all. But of course, he sat there and played it beautifully. But I sat there in disbelief, just wondering how in the world he pulled this out of thin air. So these two stories really illustrate a gap in my playing. Jeremy could recall any ballad he'd ever heard on the spot and perform it, and yet, why couldn't I remember Secret Love or so many other tunes anymore? And what I discovered through this journey has completely changed my understanding of how we memorize music. See, I think lasting memory comes from more than just analyzing Roman numerals. The process actually starts when we listen. Let's take a look at this tune Secret Love and see how I would go about memorizing it now. Now, don't pull open your real book just yet. You listen differently when you follow along to notation. So I want you to go to Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you get your music and skim through every version of the tune you can find. And I want you to pick 3 of them that inspire you the most, and I want you to become obsessed with them. What's the rhythm? What's the groove? Can you sing the melody along with them and match the phrasing? By the end of this, I can sing all the solos. I can follow the bass movements. I know where all the drum hits are. And then I want you to repeat that with the 2 other versions that you save. It's really important that we're internalizing this melody by ear, not by memorizing what the sheet music says. So now we're ready to open up the sheet music. And what we want to do is just look at the overall form of it and see if we can identify where the key centers are. This A section is entirely in the key of E flat major. The key signature tells us that, but also there are no accidentals in the melody. So when we get to the B section, we got to look a little bit closer because we start to see some accidentals. The first 4 measures, C minor to F7 to B flat major, that's a 2-5-1 in the key of B flat. And if you look at the melody notes, everything here belongs to the key of B flat major. The next 4 measures, the B flat minor to E flat 7 to A flat major, that's another 2-5-1, but this time in the key of A flat. And if we look at the notes of our melody, we see we have a D flat and our A natural has become A flat again. So these 4 measures, the melody is entirely in the key of A flat major. So except for this one note at the end, the entire melody for this tune fits the major scale of whatever key center we're in at the time. Now, a huge number of our standards are diatonic like this with only a few simple exceptions. Now, there are certainly more complex tunes, especially like bebop heads, where the melodies get more chromatic and more advanced, but I think you'll find as you grow that those are actually pretty diatonic too. They're just decorated with some chromatic enclosures and approach notes and things that we'll talk about in another video. All right, so let's play it here together. Remember, our A section we said was entirely in the key of E flat. The melody is composed using nothing but notes of the E flat major scale. It starts here on the 5th. So there's our second ending. Now as we go into the B section, we said the first 4 bars of our B section change the key signature up to the 5th, up to B flat. And our melody starts on the 4th note of B flat, and it's entirely composed of notes of the B flat major scale. Right? Now for the next 4 bars, we're in the key of A flat. We start on the 4th, that's our D flat. And there's our one exception in the entire tune, that B natural does not belong in the key of A flat. And right here at the C section, we're back in our home key of E flat major. So as you go through and play this tune with the sheet music, I want you to mentally remember when you're switching key centers and recognize that the melody is following that shift along and playing in the scale that belongs to that new key center. Now remember, our melody starts on B flat, which is the 5th of the E flat major scale. Using that, I want you to close the book and see if you can fight your way through the melody. I want you to really trust your ear that you know the melody because you listened obsessively to those recordings, and I want you to try and play the melody as best you can using notes of that E flat major scale. Now notice, up to this point, we haven't done anything really to intentionally memorize this tune. All we've done is listen to it obsessively to the point where it's stuck in our head. There are songs that I learned back in high school that I can't get out of there. There's something about learning melodies by ear that just stick around with you forever. So at this point, because we know the melody so well in our head, and we know it's just notes of the major scale, we should be able to pick a different major scale and play the melody. Let's try it. Let's go to G major. So we know our melody starts on the 5th. If you struggle with this, it's usually for one of two reasons. Either you don't know the melody well enough, and so when you're trying to play it, you just forget it, you just lose it. And in that case, you need to go back and listen to the tune a whole bunch more. The other thing is maybe you hear it in your head fine, but it doesn't come out of your hands, in which case you need more time spent ear training. Notice that neither one of these problems has anything really to do with memorizing at all. All we're doing is hearing the melody in our head and using our ears to get it out. Once you can play this melody in any key, we're ready to move on to learn the changes. So just like our melody, the chords we play generally are going to follow the key center that we're in. And again, just like our melody, we want to memorize as little of this as possible. We want to trust that if we can get the sound into our ears, we can put it back together using our ear training. So that means as much as possible, we want to remember harmonic movements, not individual chords. For example, here in the A section, our key center is E flat, and we start on the E flat major chord. No need to memorize that. Now the next measure is an F minor to B flat 7. That is a 2-5 here in our key of E flat major. You can just remember that as one thing, a 2-5, not two separate things, not F minor and B flat. Just think 2-5 in the key of E flat. Our next two measures have 4 chords, G minor, C7, F minor to B flat 7. That seems like a lot to remember, but those 4 chords are what we call a turnaround. We run across this movement all the time also. So to memorize this first line is just a couple things to keep in mind. We've got an E flat major, that's the 1 chord, don't need to remember that. And then we've got a 2-5, and then we've got a turnaround. Not 7 individual chords. Okay, let's look at the second line. Our turnaround took us back home to E flat, and we go to the 4 chord, A flat 7. So we're just going to remember this as moving to the 4. The next 4 chords, G minor, C7, F minor to B flat 7. Again, that's the same turnaround we just played a second ago. So to remember the second line, we just remember go to the 4 and then play a turnaround. Let's look at the last 2 lines now. You'll notice F minor to B flat. That's a 2-5. Then we do it again. Then we do it again, and then we have our 4 chord turnaround again. Now this is where some music theory knowledge helps you quite a lot. You really need to be recognizing these groups of chords as movements. You should know what a 2-5 sounds like. You should know what a 2-5-1 sounds like. You should know what a turnaround is. And there's 10, 12, 15 of these really common groups of movements. Once you learn them, your ear will help you remember them in the form. So let's put the book away and see if we can make it through these changes using the story. So we're here in the key of E flat. Our story tells us we go 2-5, and then we do a turnaround. Now we're back home. We go to the 4 dominant, and that takes us to another turnaround. And now we do a 2-5, another 2-5, another 2-5, and now we turn around. Now we're at the second ending. So just like we did with our melody, where we learned to play it over all of the different major scales, we need to do the same thing with this story, just changing what our home key is. Now, everybody that I've ever met struggles to do this. It's difficult, but I promise you the struggle is not the memorization part. Memorizing the story form of the song is actually pretty simple. The hard part is translating all these little harmonic movements from the story to the keyboard. Now, these harmonic movements apply to every song that we learn, and so it gets easier with every new song. We only have to learn the turnaround once, and then we can apply it to any songs we learn in the future. Same thing with the backdoor or the 2-5s. Once we know those harmonic movements in all the keys, they apply instantly into other songs. But now that we know the harmony and the melody separately, as piano players, we're going to want to bring those two things together. So we're in the key of E flat. Our melody is all notes of the E flat major scale. We start on the 5th. And our story, remember, starts on the 1 chord, 2-5, and a turnaround. And once you really get the story and the melody internalized, putting these together is just really practice. But think about the bigger picture of this. We are learning that we can play a song just by memorizing what it sounds like. We trust our ear training and our hands to be able to translate that to the keyboard. And if we can do that, we can play any song that we hear in our head and can understand. We never have to see the sheet music in the first place. See, now it makes sense why Jeremy Siskin can take a request from the audience and perform it right away. It's not that he's memorized the entire American songbook, it's that he just knows how the song goes, and now he can recreate that song by ear with confidence. Now, it's super important to me that I'm authentic with you on this channel, and I'm not going to pretend that I can do this perfectly. This is very challenging. I'm definitely still working on building my own repertoire by doing this, but I can tell for sure now that the path that I'm on is going to get me there. If you want some more tips to work on your ear training, this is the perfect video for you to watch right now. We take a bunch of songs, we learn how to play them by ear together in real time, so go check that out.